Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hi, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills. And man, we have a jam-packed show today. Arm and I will be talking about the history of Vince Gironda and things to know about the steak and eggs diet. So I'm pumped and I'm ready for this. Armin, how's it going today, man?
That's going good, Frank. Got my quad and calf workout in today. It was a rough one, but once it's done, that's the best part. So then I just work on fueling up the muscles after getting done. So now it's a lot more fun.
Well, we're in the NSP gym together. This is episode 5, so we're very fired up about this. And, you know, I'm really excited to talk about Vince today because I've seen his pictures. They're all over the NSP, all over the internet. You know, he's a popular, well-known guy, but a lot of people don't know a lot about Vince unless you've done the homework. So that's why I'm excited about this. But Armin, that being said, what made you decide to talk about Vince today?
Well, you know, since Vince was the actual creator of NSP Nutrition, which stands for Natural Source Products, you know, I thought it'd probably be a good idea to give the listeners a little bit of background on, you know, how things got started from, you know, the guy that actually started, which, you know, makes a big difference when you're trying to understand, well, how does all this come about? So I just thought it'd be a good idea to jump on that.
Well, an awesome idea. So let's kick this off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Vince Gironda?
All right. Now, when we're talking about this is going to be an all-inclusive kind of background because Vince has a huge, long-term list of accomplishments. So we're going to hit the highlights of, you know, I think the things I think would be important for people just to be aware of. But, you know, because you'd have a really long history. Vincent Anselmo Gironda, he was basically born in Brooklyn, November 9th, 1917. So again, November 9th, 1917, and then passed away October 18th, 1997. And basically, he's an American professional bodybuilder, personal trainer, and author, co-founder of the supplement company that we talked about, NSP Nutrition. And also, he created the most controversial and the most innovative gym that trained Hollywood's stars. And he did that for quite a number of years, and he has quite an accolade of that accomplishment as well. And he was born in the Bronx, New York, as well.
So
one other thing I will say is some people are kind of curious about, you know, what he passed away from. And I talked to David Gironda, who is a relative of Vince, and he's one of the cousins. And he said he ended up getting a blood clot, and that's what took him out. That's what happened. Okay. That's what he said. So
okay. Well, wow, that's unfortunately the way a lot of people go, but he had a great life and impacted a lot of people with the things that he did. With his last name, is that Italian? Gironda, maybe? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it's Italian heritage. Yeah.
So just a little curious now, what do you think got him going in the world of fitness, Armin?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story, which is actually kind of cool, I think. When Vince was 7, his dad decided that they need to move to California because he had gotten a job as a stuntman on the Ben-Hur movie. You know, that's pretty unique. And so they moved, and then Vince was there. And then, you know, as he was growing up, you know, his dad's doing the stunt work. He thrived and got into all kinds of sports, did really well with sports, even did really well in the pole vault, learned how to ride horses and all kinds of unique things. But then as time went by, he had to figure out what he wanted to do with his life because he was ready to get out of high school. He thought, hey, I'm going to I'm gonna do what my dad's doing. I'm gonna go be a stunt man because he was very athletic. So, and, being a stunt man, that's pretty kind of a prerequisite. So
Right.
he went to audition for different stunt jobs, and apparently they felt like, listen, man, you're too skinny, you're not big enough to do these kind of things. And
Hmm.
so he got the first building of character, so to speak, with the solid no, this isn't for you, kid. So at that point, Vince, he was just like, well, what else can I do? But he also recognized that, okay, let me learn how to put on some more muscle, and maybe I can still get a job or go that direction. So he
Hmm.
didn't give up. So then he went to the YMCA that was local to there and started learning about weightlifting and strength training. And again, the goal was just to add more muscle. And then he did really well with what he was learning, to the point where, as he got more developed, he got a job with the Easton brothers as a trainer, which is a very popular gym. They were at the time pretty well known, and so he kind of got his background built from there, learning from those people there, and just continued to learn as much as he could.
Wow, that must have been pretty cool. Your dad's a stunt man out in California, growing up like that. Um,
Yeah.
I can't imagine, but I don't know. It sounds cool to me. But so what happened to Vince next after that?
Well, he was thriving as a trainer, and still learning a lot of things. But he wanted to kind of do his own thing, so he
Hmm.
felt pretty confident about his abilities. And I think what happened was his dad, being a stunt man, uh, they actually needed to get people in shape pretty quickly. And since Vince was doing well as a trainer, his dad thought it might be a good idea to come back out to California and train some of these people. So again, I don't have total documentation of how this all happened, but that's kind
Hmm.
of what I've read with different things I've been reviewing. And so at that point, Vince decided, okay, so he had somewhat a referral base, would be my guess, through his dad. So he
Okay.
decided to go ahead and open up a gym in 1948, open up his own gym in Studio City, California, which is right next to where the movie stars did most of the acting work. And
Uh-huh.
so then, you know, he would start training people, but his niche at the time was being able to train the movie stars,
Hmm.
which, that's got to be a pretty good market. So it was good thinking on Vince, because Vince was a pretty smart guy. And I think he got it to work. They had a lot of pressure on him to make things happen, which we can talk about some of the strategies, but that was what happened. So he had to get these people in shape really quick for the producers.
Hmm. Well, he had to have been very successful to be able to train these folks, because he had to have been well known out in California. I mean, it just doesn't happen like that. But um, I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. Uh, did you have any more information on kind of how he actually was known? Did he compete? Did he win any titles?
Yeah, that was the one thing about Vince that, you know, unfortunately, he didn't win any titles. He was always in the hunt, but he never
Hmm.
won any titles. And, the thing is, the guy who was competing in his 40s and 50s, even at that
Oh.
time when he's competing against younger people. But with the way Vince got in condition, which, kind of set the standard, in my opinion,
Hmm.
as well, is he got as lean as he could, and very muscular looking, and try to develop good shape. But at the time, the judges weren't really looking for that. They were actually like, wow, this is so different. They didn't even know where to put him in a
Hmm.
category, because he was a totally different physique compared to what they were seeing. So,
Right.
and at this point, he's all natural. And some of these guys, maybe they were taking some stuff, maybe they weren't, still early
Right.
on, but he's doing all this naturally. But he was not getting a nod. So he got second several times, and he got a lot of third places, but never could quite pull off the big win.
Interesting, that he never won any titles, but yeah, to compete in your 40s against younger guys must have been, well, a daunting task even for him. The other thing I
Yeah.
found it interesting, during this time, he had to have been really becoming well known as a trainer and learning to get well, not actually learning, but being able to get these people in shape. Was he
Yeah.
at that time becoming very well known? I mean,
Well, what he got really the most recognition for
uh
initially, in my opinion, and based on what I've read, is he got the Hollywood stars in shape very rapidly. And so he actually created a unique training program, which NSP actually promotes. It's called the 21 Day Challenge now, but it's how he trained the movie stars and how he had to get them in
okay,
shape. And, within several weeks, they had to be conditioned enough to be ready for their roles. And he had to make it so that they could actually do the work. And so that's where his initial claim to fame came. And then he also had to get really creative on getting them quicker results. And so then he knew that nutrition was going to be critical. And then also as time went by, he found that supplements would help speed up the process. So, and that's why he's so well known. And because, well, that's part of why he got well known, because he got the results very rapidly for people. And, if you're somebody that's looking to get some results quickly, well, yeah,
right.
you've got their interest. And so after he starts training people like Clint Eastwood, Carl Weathers, Eric Estrada,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
Denzel Washington, James Garner, Steve McQueen. I mean, he has a long list of people, and there's
Wow.
other females
Yeah.
too. Marilyn Monroe, he did some stuff with her. He has a long list. So that was his initial, you know, claim to fame to start with. But then over time, he started training as he was training other clients. Then the bodybuilding thing started to come through because he knew how to get people in shape pretty good. And then that's when he started training other people for bodybuilding shows. And then
Okay.
that opportunity came up with Larry Scott, and Larry wanted to be successful in the Miss America and the different AAU shows and things like that. So Ben started working with him, and he ended up really setting the trend by winning the first two Mr. Olympias, which Vince prepared him for, and he looked phenomenal. I
Hmm.
mean,
Okay.
it was hands down the best physique. So he won the first two, and then retired from there. But then this is all going on. This is in the '60s and early '70s. So, but then Joe Weider had brought Arnold to the States, and Arnold wasn't as cut as he needed to be, or needed more conditioning, according to Joe
Hmm.
Weider as well. So he hooked him up with Vince, and so then that collaboration kind of happened. It wasn't a long stint. I
Hmm.
think Arnold trained with Vince for about 9 months, but Vince showed him the different things he would do. And there's a little bit of edginess there, I guess, because Arnold historically, there's a lot of you can see it on social media and other things where Vince called Arnold a fat what to his face,
Right.
because Arnold was saying, "Hey, I'm Mr. Universe and I'm all that in a bag of chips," so to speak. And then
Uh-huh.
Vince is like, "I'm not impressed." Vince did have a very unique aura about him. And again, I never met Vince, but this is just different things I've heard from a lot of different people. He could also rub you wrong pretty quickly. So, but if he liked you, it ended up being a pretty good, pretty good relationship. So, but he
Yeah, that's
trained a
all
lot of
pretty
different
cool,
people.
man.
Yeah, I mean, he trained Lou Ferrigno for a while, and then Frank Zane trained in his gym for a while. Now, again, there's always commentary about what he actually did for these people. So that's another
Hmm.
thing that I'm not getting involved with that. It's what you
Right.
read about.
All right. Well, that's a lot of really incredible things that he was involved in. So what else was Vince known for?
Well, because of everything going on, he was actually involved with the beginnings of the fitness boom. Uh, because that's when it
Hmm.
was, equipment was starting to, Vince built his own equipment. So to get the muscles to work the way he wanted them to work, he had to figure out what kind of how you could do that and use equipment to do it. So he built his own. But at the point when things got started, he was basically training 25% bodybuilders and then 75% actors. So that was his total clientele that he worked with. But people wanted to look like these people, right? So then more and more people were interested in how to train, how to exercise, how to get the look like that they wanted. So he was really a Kickstarter to the actual boom of fitness.
Wow. Crazy. Just a move to California, how all this snowballed for him. Now, I know there's a
Yeah.
couple other things that we've seen on the NSP Nutrition site that he's known for. So why don't you go into some of these other things that he's known for?
Well, when it comes to being successful, getting people in shape, Vince did a lot of studying. He studied all the muscles. He could tell you anything about a muscle. He also studied, nutrition, because in Vince's eyeballs or in his mind,
Hmm.
nutrition was 85% name of the game.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, he realized that supplements, because of what you absorb nutritionally, certain supplements could help improve the absorption and also give better performance. And so he started studying all types of supplements. And so he was putting together different combinations for his clients to help get them where they need to be.
Hmm.
So, over time, he just figured out the most effective way to burn fat, to get lean. And he accomplished that by showing how lean he would get for a show. And, he was cutting edge on that. And it's just funny how over time people pushed away from that with different other strategies,
Hmm.
because it worked then and it still works today, ironically, because he had it figured out. So,
Hmm.
and he did this he did a lot of research, different doctors and different people that he felt were a good influence. And he learned what he needed to do. And then he experimented, figured it out, and then he implemented it with other people. So it did work. As a matter of fact, that's when he ended up coming up with the steak and egg diet, which was designed to be, it's really designed to be for short periods of time,
Hmm.
to get lean. So typically a 6 to 12 week period, and it works really well. But like anything else, that's a pretty basic diet to follow for a long period of time. So
Right. Right. Well, if you do it right, it's effective, right? So if it still works, it must be something that is going to stick around for a long time, and it has. So we both know that he was very committed to fitness, Arman, and
oh yeah.
I know there's some other things that you probably want to talk about as well that he did come up with.
Yeah, like the other things that Vince was pretty creative on, and he realized how protein was very critical, very important, along with fats.
Hmm.
But he finally figured out that amino acids, which what are broken down from protein, if you can get those in a simple form, you can also use those as part of your supplementation, so that you don't necessarily have to eat so much food. And he wasn't a big fan of eating a lot of food, from what I could tell.
Hmm.
But what he wanted was to make sure you get the maximum amount of nutrients you could absorb during that time. So he figured out he figured out that amino acids are really critical to maintaining muscle and to keep muscle growing.
Hmm.
So he figured out, if you have protein every so many hours, typically 3 to 4 hours, and it doesn't have to be a meal, but it just needs to be protein, that you would keep the body in a positive nitrogen balance. So it's always doing protein synthesis the way it needs to recover and help rebuild muscle tissue. So he
Hmm.
was way ahead of his time on that. Um, then he also understood that if you want to maximize your protein absorption, that you need to know how the digestive system works. So that's when he started learning about hydrochloric acid and then digestive enzymes, because they'll actually speed up the digestion process and help you absorb those nutrients much more efficiently. So then he went out and created his own digestive enzyme, and which included hydrochloric acid, so that
Hmm.
when you're eating a lot of food, you make sure you're digesting it properly so you don't have other issues, because digestion is also critical to absorbing the nutrients. And so he was cutting edge on that.
Well, the thing that's interesting too is I know that you and I have had many conversations, and you just actually mentioned too that he learned a lot about glandulars as well, right?
Yeah, so glandulars have been around a long time. The Vince just realized, glands like other glands. So no matter if the glands come from beef or whatever source,
Hmm.
they have the same format. So when he would research, and because people have historically ate organ meats, because they're typically going to affect the glands.
Hmm.
So one organ meat that he also discovered that was very effective is beef liver.
Hmm.
So if you eat beef liver, your body actually recognizes that, and it helps your liver. But also it has other benefits to it. So he came out with beef liver uh, tablets initially to get them made. so that as he learned about them and started using them, he found that he had more energy. He also found that his recovery was better, and it was protein. So it's an easy way to supplement and get good workouts, but not have to eat so much food, but also get the amino acids and get the properties you need to help with the recovery in your training. So on top of that, he learned about the other different glands like orchic, which is the testicular gland, testicles, pituitary, adrenals, and products like that. So that's how he came up with the sterol program, which is Sterol 11, which is now the hormone optimizer. We just changed the name of it for different reasons, but ironically, he also understood about estrogen. So then he recommended the brassicasserol, which is they're basically cruciferous plants like broccoli, cauliflower, etc. They help manage estrogen. So he had that included in his glandular product, so that you would get the benefits all together and be more balanced with your hormone levels. The thing is your hormones are secreted by soft tissue glands. Okay, these glands are stimulated through different processes with nutrition and your growth hormone release and things like that. But if you take his viewpoint was, if you take the glandulars, that'll help those glands recover and work better, was the viewpoint based on some historical analysis he had learned about. So that's how that all came about. But on top of that, he also was involved with a ton of other types of supplements that as he learned about, would help. Like he was big on kelp tablets. Kelp tablets help the thyroid gland work at a high level because it has high amounts of iodine. And the Japanese, they eat a lot of seaweed and seafood stuff that has a lot of iodine in it. So the iodine they take in is much higher than we take here, and they have virtually no thyroid problems at all in Japan. He learned all these kind of things, and he learned about taking other supplements like lysine and niacin and iron tablets. And he had just a whole long. I mean, it was pathetic how many things he would have in his supplement regimen, but he had reasons for everything he put together.
Now, at this time, when he started learning about all this stuff, and you actually mentioned he started taking the beef liver and trying it out, was this around the time after he saw the results that he started to implement it to the individuals that he trained? Did he have them taking beef liver as well?
Yeah, at the time when he was learning about all this, he had to just find the resources to send his clients to go buy it, or he would buy it and then resell it to them. But he had to figure out where to get this stuff. So that's how things evolved over time. He knew they worked, but he had to get make different arrangements with suppliers, I guess, to help people get the supplements that he needed them for, or they could just go buy them on their own. But he wanted them to be part of the regimen. So,
well, one thing that I've gathered in regards to Vince, he really must have understood muscles and how to work them properly.
Well, yeah, that was one of the strong points. And he kept it really fundamentally simple. Most of this stuff's pretty simple, but the reason is that because it was very effective. He didn't need to elaborate with some of the movements that he incorporated for guys and girls that, because he knew how they would work and how they'd affect it. So he created a lot of different training programs because of that. And then also because he was so dialed in with how muscles work, he actually created a lot of different ways to train them. So he came out with the preacher curl. He's involved with that. Maybe he wasn't the very first guy, I don't know, but he's well known for the preacher curl and how it develops a bicep. He had a special design to the preacher curl that he liked. He was also heavily involved with developing the sissy squat. He had a guy he worked with. I can't remember his name, but he's well known as well. But this guy was doing sissy squats, and Vince was really impressed with his leg development and learned the different techniques that this guy was trying to utilize. And he just kind of modified them as he used them. But the sissy squat's one of the things that he was very well known for. And then dips, he designed his own dip rack, and he had different strategies where he had all kinds of measurements. The dip needs to be 32 inches wide, across, and then you got to have an angle to it. And then you position yourself different ways to get maximum force on the pec muscles. And then they also had one for the triceps. So, he was cutting edge and all that. He had to kind of build his own equipment though to get the things he wanted done. He learned how to use cables. He built his own cable stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing. But then over time, you know, the other equipment manufacturers started figuring out what they could do. You know, then Knowles come around, Arthur Jones came around, he was doing his thing. So that became a whole nother debate about what worked and didn't work. So, you know, Arthur felt like he had it more figured out than Vince. I mean, there's these kind of things all came around over time as well because it's competition. But anyways.
It sounds like for his time frame, for his era, first of all, guy was relentless on fitness. I mean, on his training, on his research, on the new techniques, everything that you've talked about. He probably was really the most knowledgeable trainer of his time, right?
Well, during that period, I wouldn't want to get into it with him. Let's put it that way. I mean, he had a demeanor, I guess, that, you know, if you didn't really agree with him, he's like, he didn't really care, but he wasn't going to give you any more of his time. You know, people would like some people would ask him because he had the eggs, the 36 eggs a day diet, which is kind of misunderstood. They act like you have to eat 36 eggs every single day, which that's really not the case. That's your maximum that you would want to take as part of his hormone precursor diet. But people are like, well, what about cholesterol? And Vince would be like, you know, like one guy called him. This is one of the stories I learned about is the guy called him, got him on the phone, and Vince was telling him, well, you need to eat eggs. And he goes, and he started telling him how many eggs you need to eat to get the results he was looking for. And then the guy says, well, what about cholesterol? And then Vince just hung up on him. So he didn't put any time with you. So, and if you, and at the time he was absolutely correct. But over time, you know, people started throwing, you know, because it is cholesterol, people are like, oh, yeah, that's a form of cholesterol. You don't want to be eating that. Again, there's a big difference between what you're doing and if you're training, if you're just sitting around doing nothing. Well, there may be a different opinion there. Okay, maybe you don't need as much food because you're not really doing a whole lot. But if you're training, and Vince mentioned this in all of his things, because you know the steak and egg diet it's a high cholesterol diet, and it's been getting thrown on the bus. If you're training, especially at a high level, you're not going to have a lot left over because you know you need the fats for your hormones and you need the protein for your muscles. So it's a win-win. You just use the carbohydrates as needed to reload the muscles and liver for specific types of training. But again, Vince had all kinds of diets. It wasn't just a one size fits all.
Interesting. Well, let's get to the NSP nutrition side of things here. Actually, when did NSP nutrition come about? I mean, how did he start it? And most importantly, I know you mentioned earlier in the show, but what does NSP stand for?
Yeah, well, NSP stands for natural source products because Vince wanted all natural stuff because that's what he believed in. He thinks, oh, he felt like, okay, you can do everything naturally, you get great results. And so why mess with anything else? I mean, it was awesome. And he was spot on with what he said. But, you know, everybody's looking for an edge. It's just like the Olympic athletes and things like that. There, you know, well, this will give me an edge, that'll give me an edge. So that happens. So it is what it is. But Vince was just, you know, he's like, listen, I just want to do it naturally. Not a way I have to worry about anything going wrong, which is a good thing. But back in 1972, him and Ray Reardon and Ron Kosloff decided to work together to create their own supplement company. That way they wouldn't have to deal with all the other companies on getting the products. Which was a great idea. And, you know, Vince already had a great following, so it made sense. And he had his own demeanor on how he wanted his supplements to be made. And so that was another thing that he wanted to have more control over is how they got made to make sure that they're naturally put together. And so he kind of set the trend with that too. And that's when he started, you know, he came out with the milk and egg protein, the beef liver capsules, you know, the steroid 11, which is the glandular, using kelp tablets. But then eventually that evolved to just using an iodine tablet, which is what we sell at NSP now as an iodine tablet. And it's very effective. I take them every day because I want to make my thyroid work at a high level consistently to give it what it needs to work at a high level. And iodine is part of that. Most people don't get enough iodine in their diet. And again, iodine with the thyroid working at a high level, that's going to get more mitochondria working. So you're going to burn more fat, burn more energy, and plus you feel better. So anyways, And he was all over it, but he wanted to have some quality control of the supplements because his name was going to be involved with it. So that's my understanding how it all came together.
Interesting. Well, a lot of great information on Vince and NSP here at the end. And Arman, you actually mentioned the iodine, the beef liver, all that is available right now on nspnutrition.com.
Yeah.
We both take the beef liver. We both can vouch for it. I mean, very impactful for me. I don't know. How actually long have you been taking it now, Arman, the beef liver?
Well, that's kind of the other interesting thing. When I first, I took them when I was younger, but the problem I ran into, I was taking like Universal or whatever the product was at that time. I think it was Universal. They really upset my stomach. So I really couldn't keep taking them. And so I kind of gave up on that idea when I was younger. They were pretty inexpensive, but I never bought NSP products at the time. I just was buying what I found, local, because during those days you'd buy things off the internet or anything. You had to go to the food store, try to find them. So, but with the beef liver, I started taking them probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I read about them, and when I finally ran across NSP Nutrition at the time. And so I ordered some based on what I read, and then I was taking them, and I was like, wow, I noticed the difference pretty quickly. And during that time when I bought them, they were capsulated, so they weren't in a tablet form. And so I was taking them and had no problems. Then ironically, they ran out and had to order some more. So I liked what I was getting from the beef liver, because I take about 20 a day. Typically, I take 10 in between breakfast and lunch, and then 10 in between lunch and dinner to keep that positive nitrogen balance thing going on. So when they ran out, I bought I've tried probably 3 other brands, and I'm telling you, all of them upset my stomach. I'm just impressed how they can sell those other products the way they affected me anyway. So I didn't really like them because of the way they bothered my stomach. I've never had a problem with this design. Now, one of the things I did learn is that when they make the beef liver at NSP, they take out everything. It's just pure raw beef that they're putting together that they freeze dry to make the capsules. The other companies, I guess, they'll grind up everything. So they may have some tendon, ligament tissue and stuff in there. And that's probably one of the things that would probably upset my stomach when I was taking them, because they were capsulated, but I couldn't even finish the bottle. There's 3 different companies, and I'm not gonna get into the company names, but I was really surprised. So I just, if I can get the NSP, I just gotta do without at this point, because I can't take the others. I haven't found anything that even be close.
Interesting. Well, all of these items are available at nspnutrition.com, and if you're interested in the 21-day challenge, just go to nspnutrition.com and you can scroll down to the bottom and click right on take the 21-day challenge. Doesn't cost you anything. So if that's what you're interested in, check it out.
Train like a movie star.
That's right. Well, Arman, some great information. We're going to take a break. You are watching the NSP Nutrition Show. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. Hey, I'm here with Arman Eckelbarger, and we're going to get right into our nutrition segment. Of course, we have to keep the theme going because, we talked about Vince in the first segment. People want to know about this steak and eggs diet. I know I do. So that's what the segment is, things to know about it. And Arman, tell us about the steak and egg diet. What is it?
Yeah, well, it's nice thing is, and Vince was big on having things that are simple. So, you would basically have steak, and then 2 to 3 eggs or more, depending. His standard was just eat until you're full, but you'd have steak, and preferably cooked rare to medium rare, was my understanding. And then the eggs, any style, they could be scrambled, hard boiled, fried, whatever. you'd eat that to your full. You'd have that for breakfast, then you'd have it for lunch, and you'd have it for dinner. Now, Vince, he wasn't a heavy guy, so he would basically just do breakfast and dinner for him because he was full. And there are days when I've done this that you're so full you don't even need, you don't eat it. You do not need to eat another meal because it does stay with you. But I do suggest what he would recommend, and that is taking the digestive enzymes with the hydrochloric acid. So, which is what NSP provides. I would recommend taking those, and I typically take them after I eat because then the food's in there, then those come into play to help with the digestion process. Now you can take them before, but I just think that from time to time you could upset your stomach a little bit because you got more hydrochloric acid already in the system, which could irritate it. So I like to take mine after. The other thing is when he did this diet, and as you do research about things, I thought it was brilliant because because everybody's like, well, why do you have eggs? Which is a good question. I want to know why not just eat steak? But Vince realized that eggs can become high glycemic and they convert to glucose as needed very easily. So you'd have some carbohydrate, but again, it's not a carbohydrate that's going to bring up your insulin. So you keep the insulin very low. So all you do is you just burn fat because you can't burn fat when insulin comes up. And he figured all this out, which is amazing with today's knowledge, because people just don't understand insulin at all. It's amazing to me. People know about eating carbs and stuff to get results, but you didn't need that. So very simple to follow. And if you like steak, hey, and then the eggs, you just mix them up the way you want to. So
that's crazy. Well, steak and eggs, anywhere you go out for breakfast, you see steak and eggs on the menu. I wonder why, if that's it got so popular back in the day. It impacted the breakfast industry all over the place. But I love steak and eggs. So tell us more.
Well, the thing about it does fill you up and it does last you for quite a while. So you may not need to have a meal because proteins and fats, they last for 4 to 6 hours. So they burn slower, but they're more consistent. And you don't have insulin getting in the way to make you hungry. So that's good. Now, I will say this, when it comes to the steak and egg diet at this point in time, with the way the food industry is, I highly recommend that you get grass-fed only beef that's organic to get the best result. And then the eggs, I recommend range-free, organic, those types of strategies, so that you're, again, not getting anything that the food industry has added into the mix. So you don't want any antibiotics, don't want any hormones, things like that. But if you use the grass-fed beef, the reason for that is it has conjugated linoleic acid in it. And that is an automatic fat emulsifier. Plus, they found that grass-fed beef has 40% less cholesterol. So you don't get this cholesterol thing that people are all worried about. But if you have corn-fed, you're going to have a higher amount of cholesterol. That's another thing. And that's why probably beef gets thrown under the bus with the media and other medical professionals, most likely because of that. And a lot of them will have hormones and antibiotics. So I get that. But if you buy organic grass-fed, I think you're going to eliminate that. Now, the only other things you could have on the steak and egg diet that Vince would recommend would be grass-fed butter. Butter, but I'm recommending grass-fed. You cook your eggs with, as another medium. And then, heavy cream. You could use heavy cream if you wanted, but no cheese, nothing else other than that for the meat and fat properties. Now, you can't stay on that day after day with zero carb if you're trying to put on muscle and keep things recovered. So you need some glucose. So you need some carbohydrates. So Vince realized this because he created the program. So every 4th or 5th day, depending on how he felt, he would have some high glycemic carbs, which was kind of ironic too, because he understood how insulin works. So that would be like pasta, potato, grain or fruit, something like that, or a combination. You'd have one high glycemic carb meal, and that is just really to help reload the muscles in the liver with the glycogen that's needed, so you can maintain your energy levels and keep your strength up and also help keep the pump consistent, because you do need glucose for those things.
Okay.
Even though glucose is converted from some of the protein you eat, but you still need to have a substantial amount to reload. But it was only one meal that he recommended by itself with no protein. So because unfortunately, carbohydrates are alkaline in nature versus protein and fats are acidic in nature. So Vince didn't want anything getting in the way of the alkalinity and the absorption of those nutrients. So he wanted it by itself. And the reason he did high glycemic, typically, and plus I think it was in the evening he recommended, is because you get the insulin spike, but then the insulin would drop right back down. So you don't have elevated insulin going on. So that I would be my assumption that he had why he recommended that type of carbohydrate intake.
Okay. Was this like his go-to plan as far as the steak and egg diet? I mean, as he trained people?
Well, he did it for his own shows. So when he was preparing for contest, this is exactly what he did. And he ended up creating the maximum definition diet, which is similar, but just gives you a little more flexibility. We'll talk about that on another time. But he used this to prepare, and he only had 2 meals. He'd had the steak and eggs in the morning and steak and eggs in the evening, along with his supplements. And then he would reload carbohydrate wise every 4th or 5th day. And that's how he got in really great contest shape. And if you look at his pictures, that he was pretty much spot on.
How about his supplementation during this whole steak and egg plan? Were there some supplements? Did he have a long list of supplements that he took with this plan?
Well, when you read most of Vince's stuff, he had a long list of stuff. I mean, he didn't want to leave any stone unturned. So, and some of the stuff that he recommended back in those days, you can't even find it today. I mean, that's how thorough and intense it was. So I'm not going to get into a long list, but the highlights. Again, we're talking about for proper digestion. He had the digestive enzymes to make sure that you're going to break down the food as effectively as possible, that also combined with hydrochloric acid. And so at the time, he would have you do the hydrochloric tabs along with taking digestive enzymes, because they weren't really combined. But today you can buy them combined, which is really helpful. And then to keep the fat burning, he learned about lipotropics. So these are different ways to burn fat. And so he realized that B vitamins were important for that. Choline and inositol, which you also get from egg yolks. That's why he liked egg yolks too, not egg whites.
Okay.
There's people in the egg whites, and I don't get that at all. I've done egg whites, but once you do the research on it, you need to eat the yolks. You have fat emulsifying properties in the yolk, so why get rid of them? Plus, you're losing some protein. But anyways, he want to learn about different ways to burn fat on top of what you're eating. And so then again, the B vitamins, the choline, the inositol, lecithin, and then what they actually do, they allow the liver and the bladder to metabolize the fats easier when you have those in your system. I mean, that's how on spot he was with this kind of stuff. And then with that, as a lipotropic, he liked the amino acid methionine as well to be combined with that. So actually to this day, you can buy what's called MIC injections, which is methionine, inositol, and choline, which are designed for fat burning exclusively, and you inject it in a concentrated format. So some of the fat loss clinics will use that, but he came up with it back in the day. So pretty impressive, I thought. Now, on top of that, I mean, he knew that the thyroid was going to be real important to help burning fat, because it's regulates your body temperature. So if you're burning energy, you're running hot, so you're going to burn more energy. You want that to work at a maximum level, so you don't want it to be sluggish. So sluggish metabolism, as Vince would say, is what causes you to not burn fat like you want to. So he wanted to make sure that metabolism was pretty stoked, and so that's when he started doing kelp tablets to get the iodine. And you recommend a lot of those because the concentration of kelp in the tablet. But now with NSP, we just have the iodine tabs,
right,
as a quick, easy resource to take. And I take those after I have my first meal of the day. I wouldn't recommend taking those later in the day because it does help your thyroid. So you might have a little trouble sleeping if you have them later in the day. Just my input on that. then also Vince, he realized when you eat a lot of meat that some people would get kind of jittery, and he also got it too. So based on some of the things I read, so he was big on managing phosphorus, because you get phosphorus from the meat that you're eating.
Okay.
And so to help reduce that nervous jittery feeling, he strongly recommended that you use the calcium from eggshell or mollusk sources, so that there's no doesn't have any phosphorus in it, but it would help to stabilize the phosphorus in your system. So I thought that was pretty cutting edge. Then on top of that, he was doing the beef liver capsules. So there's different amounts that would be taken. But I think that some of the things I read, it was like 10 beef liver capsules or tablets at the time every 3 hours was what his suggestion was, again, to help maintain positive nitrogen balance, to help build more red blood cells, which helps oxygenate the blood, which helps your endurance when you're training. And that's the one thing you will notice, is you have better endurance. So, he came out with that. And then also he would do the Orchic tablets. At the time, he had those in a separate format before he had the Sterol or the hormone optimizer that we have today. So the four Orchic tablets would help the testicles to work better because it's a glandular. He had that as part of it. Then he was on top of those stuff that help your testosterone. So that's going to be taking zinc, vitamin A, iron, wheat germ oil. That was pretty popular, and it's still very effective today. Even tryptophan. He had tryptophan to help with sleep and stuff. Of course, that got thrown in the bus over time because of people, having issues with it for different reasons. We won't even get into that, but I mean, he was involved with that too.
It's funny is every time, no matter what show that we've done, anytime we talk about eggs, I always think of that scene in Rocky where he cracks the eggs in the glass. And I think it's just historic because everybody remembers they couldn't believe that he actually drank down, what was it, like 6 or 8 eggs?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I thought that was insanity, but you did bring up the calcium from the eggshells. Are you telling me like he kind of ground up the eggshells and took that? Or, I mean,
no, you'd buy it in supplement form. You want to do, yeah, don't get me wrong. Okay, so good clarification there. You buy calcium, but you buy it from eggshell source, calcium derived from eggshell sources or from mollusk seafood sources, because it doesn't have any phosphorus in it. So that was,
gotcha.
So when you buy calcium, that's what you want to look for, that type of calcium.
Okay, so thanks for clearing that up. Now back to the steak and egg diet. I'm excited about it. I actually like what I'm hearing. How long did Vince recommend that you should stay on this diet?
Well, it would depend on your conditioning, obviously, and how late you want to get. But I only did it for 6 weeks because that's all I needed. But he would do it for up to 12 weeks for preparing for a contest. So no longer than 12 weeks would be my all the things I've read. He didn't really say anything longer than 12 weeks, just because the way it affects your body, and like anything else, there's a point of diminishing returns when you do something that's a little bit more extreme, because this is a extreme type of diet when you compare it to everything else out there. So, if you stay on an extended period of time, you're going to lose your taste for it, for one, because it's pretty repetitive. I mean, that's what I had to deal with too. So I started using garlic salt and other spices to help, keep it interesting. But that's another thing you run into when you do this kind of a diet. You get kind of bored with it because it's pretty standardized. And so over time, you'll actually lose your taste of when you eat this type of stuff. So then Vince realized this, and he did some research on it. And so what happens is your digestive system builds up a mucus over time, and that mucus can cause you to start getting bloated, make you feel lethargic, and really can affect your gains. And so that's when he came out with the lacto-vegetarian diet, which is basically designed to clear all that out. So that's for another story. But that's what can happen over a long period of time, is this mucus build up, and you need to clear it out to get your digestive tract rebuilt again. So another FYI there too.
So that was one of the ways that he changed things up for his clients after steak and eggs. Did he have other diets or other programs that he implemented as well?
Yeah, Vince Well, Vince, he would actually cater the nutrition to the person's situation. So he knew all kinds of things that he could do. Like, what he did for the Hollywood actors was a totally different diet. There was a lot of vegetables with no meat for a certain period of time. Because again, he's trying to
Wow.
clear out that mucus out of the digestive system. He's trying to detoxify them. Then he would introduce meat back in slowly. So as an example, so you have which is in that 21-day challenge, which is kind of like good to learn. They have the exact diet in there detailed, so you can follow that. So that was one. Then, like I mentioned before, the lacto vegetarian diet, people like thought he was all about meat. Well, he also was a big fan of vegetables and how they should be utilized. So he has his own design for called the lacto vegetarian diet. So you can do that too. But then he, on top of that, he had like the balanced diet, which you could find if you want a good amount of diets. I would recommend buying the Wild Physique. He has like I think five different diets in there that you could rotate in and out depending on what you want to accomplish. So that's pretty cool. So there you have the balanced diet. He had what's called an advanced maintenance diet, the hormone precursor diet. That's the one, the 36 eggs a day diet type of thing as an extreme, but that's the maximum you would take. He had a weight gaining diet, and then he redid the steak and eggs to the maximum definition diet. So they're all in the Wild Physique, but these are really, I've used several of them. They're really good diets. So if you're looking for some variety to change things up, this is a great way to do it. And it did work really well.
Interesting. Okay, so you touched on it earlier, and I know a lot of people are going to be watching this and thinking and wanting to ask the question. So let me clear this up out of the way here. A lot of great information about steak and eggs diet, but what about the cholesterol? I mean, people are worried about that.
Yeah, and so I guess that's a fair question to ask. But then when you do the research and understand, if you eat the right combination of food, again, grass-fed beef with organic or range-free eggs, you're cutting the cholesterol down right away because it's grass-fed. So you're losing 40% cholesterol there.
Okay.
The eggs, you can vary your egg intake. Okay. But again, this thing is designed for people who are pretty robust that are training. Now, if you're not exercising or training, then yeah, I don't see this being a benefit to you because you're not burning up the energy you're eating. Doesn't say that.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't work for somebody that doesn't exercise or train. But Vince designed the nutrition programs because you're training, you're working hard, and you want to get better results. So that was his focus with what he put together for nutrition.
Gotcha.
So, people, and again, the other thing is you don't do this forever. You just do it for short periods of time. So how much cholesterol are you going to build up?
Right.
So you got to use some common sense here. And that's the thing that's funny about it. So,
well, so what are some of the things that you would suggest to keep things in perspective, Arman?
okay. So like for me, I've been eating 3 to 6 eggs my whole life.
Okay.
And I have them different ways. And I did the egg white thing for a period of time, but then you start researching that, it makes no sense. So I did away with that. But the reason I eat that many eggs is because I get 6 grams of protein per egg. So 5 eggs is 30 grams of protein, 6 eggs is 36 grams of protein, pure and simple. And you have the fats built in to give you energy. So that's always good. And if you take supplements, you need fat because a lot of the supplements like vitamin D and vitamin A, et cetera, to absorb, you need some fat in your system then to absorb properly when you take them. So, that's one thing. But in a nutshell, if you're training hard, and let's say it's 3 to 5 days per week, you need to have highly absorbable protein. And that's what Vince came up with. These are the best protein sources. Eggs are 90% like human tissue, so they absorb very well. The steak is second in line, and it's also high in iron. So he had reasons for using that. And that's what builds muscle. So let's keep in mind your carbohydrates do not build muscle. So these people thinking the need to have so many carbs per day, they amaze me because no, you don't. They don't build muscle. So why you have them? And most of these people are struggling with excess body fat, or they're doing cardio to burn off they perceive to be fat, which is not necessary. Just cut your carbs back. You don't need to do the extra activity of cardio. Save your energy for your strength training. So, and then Vince didn't like cardio, and there's reasons for that because it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessary. So that's the other thing you keep in mind when you're doing that. Now, again, if you do not train or exercise, well, then this isn't really a place you need to be talking here. You need to shut this video off and move on. So let's just go with that. But again, most of the diets that Vince advocated were for periods of time, not indefinitely. So that's the other thing you got to keep in mind. You do need to rotate things to get a good gut microbiome. You need to have some different carbohydrates to help your gut microbiome, which is how you're going to digest food, how you run your immune system. So you need to get a good mix, not just one thing indefinitely forever. That's why I like also my carb cycling program that I like to do, because I get that mix as I see fit, but I'm also able to keep myself in the kind of condition I want to be in all the time.
Well, it seems to me, Arman, too, as you were talking about this, introducing the grass-fed in regards to the meat, didn't that help maybe keep the cholesterol down too?
Yeah, it's an automatic fat emulsifier. So you're going to be burning fat. So where's the issue here?
Right.
That's the thing. But people don't know a lot of this. They just think, well, because it's cholesterol, it's cholesterol, so it's a bad thing. And plus, you need cholesterol to rebuild cells. That's what your growth hormone release does in the evening when you go to bed. It secretes, and then the cells use that along with testosterone and other hormones to help rebuild the cells properly. But you need a good amount of cholesterol to do that. Now, if you're not exercising, not training, you don't need so much cholesterol. So that's a different element when we're talking about this.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to eating or organic or the grass-fed beef, tell us the advantage of this, because a lot of people, including myself, I didn't understand. Look, lean beef, here's some ground beef, here's organic grass-fed beef. It all looks the same to me. What's the difference? I mean, why should you eat grass-fed beef?
Well, again, I kind of covered this before, but I'll make sure we're clear on it. Is grass-fed beef, the cows get conjugated linoleic acid when you eat grass. So that conjugated linoleic acid is absorbed into the meat. And so it's already in place for you when you eat it. So it's going to help break out from the digestion process to help burn fat. So you got a fat emulsifier built in. And you can also take conjugated linoleic acid in as a supplement form too. But if you're eating the grass-fed beef, probably not necessary. Now, you could always add it to it if you wanted, but not necessary.
Okay. So if you eat the cheap stuff, you're going to get the bad stuff.
I don't recommend it. Don't recommend that at all.
Okay. Good.
Stay away from the, you get what you pay for, unfortunately. But if you could find a farmer that is raising cows and chickens, and you can get those food sources, I think that's top notch, because you're not going to get any better food palette than that, in my opinion. That goes for vegetables
and we're lucky.
as well.
There are a lot of places that have a farmer's market in the United States. You can go out on the weekend and you can stock up on your local farmer, either vegetables, meat, eggs, whatever. So that's a great idea. Armin, what about the eggs? I mean, kind of let's go into the eggs, because the eggs, I've heard a lot of people say, look, I can get them much cheaper if I buy these store-bought eggs compared to the organic, to the brown, I mean, there's so many different kind of eggs now when you go to the supermarket. Can you go into more detail about eggs?
Yeah, I mean, I would buy the free range or organic eggs. Now, organic eggs can be kind of expensive, so I'm also good with the free range. And again, what we're talking about here is free range just means they let the chickens out for a little bit to get some natural food. That's what we're talking about, versus keeping them all cooped up in the chicken coop where they just feed them, they poop, they feed them the poop, and they lay the eggs, that kind of thing. So that's what you're trying to do, is get a more natural fed animal or whatever to get your food source from. So that's one of the key things. The other thing about eggs is that, when it comes to eating egg whites, Vince would just get, totally frustrated because they're missing all the vital nutrients like we talked about. So when you're buying eggs, get good eggs. I like buying the brown eggs because it's, basically for a brown colored chicken, but I like that too because I think that's a more natural. Then again, it's just a personal thing for me. But again, the when you have the yolk, you get the choline, the install, lecithin, the biotin, and those are automatic fat emulsifiers, and so it's going to help reduce the cholesterol as well because it helps burn the fat. And people think that, well, when you get on the fat thing, they think carbohydrates are harmless because fat's the enemy. That is not true. I mean, your triglycerides will come up from eating carbohydrates, and triglycerides are a bigger concern than anything else, not from eating eggs. So again, I've been training for close to 40 years. I've been eating, 5 to 6 whole eggs, my whole entire life. And my levels, when I go and get my lab work done, the doctors, they're just like, well, your cholesterol is really good. And when I tell them what I eat, they don't understand it. But that's because I train. That's because I eat the way I eat, and that's how it works. So, but if you do have a cholesterol problem, then I would recommend backing away from the cheese and also backing away from seafood like scallops and shrimp and things like that, because they can cause your cholesterol to come up more than you probably would want. People don't realize that either.
Wow, a lot of great information, and we're actually running out of time, and I really hate to tell you that, but any last words on this topic? Any more information you want to share?
Basically, if you're looking for a solid strategy to lean out and build some muscle that's easy to follow, then I'd recommend that you take one of Vince's diets and get it incorporated, whether it's a steak and egg for really getting lean for a short period of time, or something like that. It's very simple and effective. But the other things you could do is you could get the maximum definition diet. We have the NSP has that in a booklet. You can get the Wild Physique, which has, like I mentioned before, like 5 or 6 diets. And then the Pro Series of Nutritional Bodybuilding has another, and that's very extensive on the supplementation. That's another good document to have as well.
Bringing up what's important, nutrition. That's what this segment was all about. Could you offer some good resources for nutrition?
Yeah, I like again the maximum definition diet, the Wild Physique, and then the Pro Series of Bodybuilding. Those are, to me, are really some of his best stuff.
Well, some terrific information, Arman. A lot of the supplements that we talked about today, they're available here on nspnutrition.com. The beef liver, iodine, and much more. One thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if a lot of people know about the whole topic or the whole idea of having a Vince's Gym actual program with NSP. And not to put you on the spot, but tell us a little bit about the Vince's Gym program and how it works.
Well, the Vince's Gym program is an online training program that has preset Vince's other training programs, like the 8x8, the 6x6, the bulking program, things like that. And it's all set up for you. It has a nutrition that goes with it, the training programs that go with it, and also is in an app, so it has video and stuff like that. So it's a great tool if you want to jump in on that, because I think you're gonna get plenty of value from it.
Well, and from what I'm hearing, more content is coming, so it may be worth checking out Vince's Gym at nspnutrition.com. All right, well, Arman, another fantastic show. Thanks so much for all the information, and look forward to doing it again next week with you.
All right, same here.
All right, everyone, please make sure that you check out nspnutrition.com. That is it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and check back next week for a new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com, where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.